The L sit is a really cool skill on its own, but also because it allows you to build into more advanced transitions like the L sit to handstand. The problem is that there are some very key tips to mastering this pose that I've never seen discussed even in the hundreds of videos I've seen on this skill. But before we discuss those tips, I first want to thank Sheila for this video request, and I want to invite you to let me know in the comments what you'd like me to talk about next. The first thing we should talk about is that how I recommend you approach the L-sit and even which progressions you end up using will depend a lot on what motivated you to try the pose initially in the first place. What I mean by this is if you want to learn the L-sit simply because it's a good functional core exercise, the approach and what we focus on is going to be a little bit different than if you want to learn it to connect it to transitions like L-sit to handstand or L-sit to plank, which is also different than if you want to learn the L-sit to make it a beautiful L-sit, just like to do it in a yoga class or take a nice photo. For example, a common mistake, if you want to call it that, is that I know people who are more interested in the L-sit as a core strengthening exercise, and yet they spend a lot of time worrying about how to get the knee perfectly straight, how to point the toes, and all of that. In reality, yes, if you get the knee straight and point the toes, the lever is longer, maybe it's a little bit more challenging for the core, but it's only a tiny bit. Mostly, when you're going for locked knees, pointed toes, it's challenging in terms of hamstring flexibility. People say compression strength, but not really, because you can strengthen your psoas with a bent knee as well. It's more hamstring flexibility and just coordination. So if this is your goal, you're going for the artistic L-sit and you want to work on that, still you might be interested in working on the bent knee first. But especially if your goal is just core strength, then go ahead and use blocks, go ahead and bend the legs and just practice this, maybe this, and it's going to be way more challenging for your core if you hold bent knee for 20 seconds than if you hold straight legs, pointed toes for only 5 seconds and then your toe cramp and then your hamstring cramps and you need to massage it. You can even use a pull-up bar, and this allows you to focus on your L-sit with the bent knee if you want, and focus just on the core side of it without having to worry about the shoulder depression. So let's talk about this. Whether you're doing the L-sit on blocks or on the floor, you want to be pushing down with your shoulders. I know we said it's a core exercise. You can do the core exercise without the shoulders part, but it's going to feel very uncomfortable and it's going to hinder you if you so choose to change your goal and work on transitions. So regardless on whether you're practicing on blocks or on the floor, always keep the shoulders depressed or use a pull-up bar. Now, if your goal or your interests are more about the advanced transitions, then still you have to do it like you do the core strength. But now you have to put way more emphasis on the shoulders down, depressed as much as possible, and big thing, the spine rounded. I know that people think the L-sit is a flat back because when you do round the spine, and try it after this if you want, round the spine and then lift, it just looks like it's not rounded. It's actually an illusion. You are rounding quite a bit, even if it looks like it's not rounding, and that's the only way you're able to do the transitions. So make sure you're rounding a lot, nothing wrong with rounding. Now, also very important is people stress on how to get the legs through. Now, this is more related to depending on how you want to do it. So of course you want to round, you want to depress, but unless your ankles are really flexible, you will not be able to do it. Maybe if your arms are really long, you will not be able to do it like this and just straight transition. In most cases, you will have to cross the legs. Or if you want to work on your ankles, but just know it takes a little bit of time, I have a ankle flexibility follow along you can use, and you can let me know how it works for you. And now finally, we're going to discuss what you should focus on in the L-sit if your goal is to just have a beautiful straight legs, pointed toes L-sit. Now, I gotta admit, I'm not the best at this. I don't spend a lot of time on this, but I can try to get my knees locked and toes pointed and still hold the L-sit. And The most important thing here is being able to keep the knees locked, point the toes, and fold forward. The more forward you can fold without any assistance, the more you can feel like you're maintaining that fold very actively and pushing from there. In fact, that is my favorite way to enter that type of L-sit. The less forward you can fold, the more you have to have the hips kind of in front of you, and it's almost like a V-sit now, and it's very intense on the triceps. Now, this might not be a bad thing. Sometimes you're traveling, you don't have anything to work your triceps, you do L-sits this way, it's fine. But if your goal is to do the beautiful L-sit, hold it for longer, you have to be able to fold more forward. And this will be actually a bit challenging on the abs, but not as much. It's more hip flexors, quads, even calves to maintain this. Now, if this is something you're interested in, I actually do have a hip flexibility tutorial. I honestly should do it more myself. It's a follow along video. So do that and combine it with the strength exercises, even if your goal is not strength, because it will make you better anyway. With that being said, that's all for the video today. Thanks so much.